everybody, mother cluckers.
Welcome
Welcome
back,
back.
everyone.
So we were able to come back way sooner than we anticipated. So yay, we're not dead.
Unfortunately, I had suffered a fair bit of an injury, and I was stuck in the hospital for a little bit, so we couldn't record much. I was recovering, but I'm
Yeah.
feeling good now.
Yeah, James decided to challenge a wizard and he lost miserably. Yeah, every bone in his body was broken. He looked like that guy in the bandages, like the guy that was like allergic to glass from SpongeBob. I'm kidding. That's not what the case. He was perfectly fine. He was kind of
Yeah,
chilling. He was vibing.
I'm just very happy to be out of the hospital. It was terrible. But anyway,
Yes.
today is a very, very interesting topic we're going to be talking about. It's
Yeah.
probably one of my
Yeah.
favorite films that we've seen recently, and it's
Yeah.
an animated film by Phil Tippett by the name of Mad God. It's an almost entirely claymation. 30 years it took to make. He started making it around the time of RoboCop, the first one coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I know,
Yeah.
sorry, one sec.
You are good.
And I know he had to delay, well, wound up delaying the making of this because he watched Jurassic Park come out, worked on Jurassic Park, and believed after the CGI in that claymation wouldn't have a place in modern cinema. So he'd abandoned it for a few years, but eventually did a starter to get more funding, did a lot of work, a lot of volunteers worked on it, and it's now finally out after
Yeah.
being only releasing in 2021. Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't know, like I keep seeing between 2021 and 2022 because at the end credits of the movie it had like a timeline for it was he started it in 1987 and worked on it until 2020. That's a long fucking time. And
Oh
like
yeah.
literally this was about 30 years of work. Like this is this guy's pet passion project, which
It's
is
really
yeah, and it landed him in the fucking hospital. You know it's gonna be a banger.
yeah. He had a in the process of making the film, he had a mental breakdown and got landed in the hospital.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It is really nice seeing a artist like this get to make basically an actual like dream project. There's no studio breathing over his neck. This was just something that he did on his own time.
Yeah, literally. And if you don't know Phil Tippett, yes you do. You do. You
You've
surely
probably
do.
yeah,
He's done
you've probably
so many
seen
movies.
yeah, you've probably seen at least a couple of the movies that the man has worked on. Most notably, RoboCop, the A New Hope, Star Wars. He worked on. He created like the cantina, some of the cantina monsters, the little like chess characters that were fighting each other in like the Millennium Falcon. And he's done a lot of work on a lot of extremely phenomenal films. Every RoboCop he worked on. He worked in Jurassic Park, like I said. He worked on Howard the Duck, Indiana Jones. He, he's done a whole bunch.
Hey honey, I just found something really fucking interesting.
Hmm?
So I was looking up something. Apparently, he either has created or is creating a part two, which is a short film of Mad
Ooh,
God.
I'd be more than happy to watch this. If you haven't, couldn't tell already, both me and my fiance here absolutely adore this film. We
I
watched
don't
it a
care
couple
what
days
y'all
ago.
motherfuckers say. I don't care what y'all motherfuckers say. You can fight me. This movie is amazing. I love this movie. I don't care if you guys say it's gross. I don't care if I get canceled for saying I like people pooping in people's mouths. This movie is art.
That does not sound good out of context. There's only one scene where that happens, and it's not very grotesque. A lot of people. So I guess we should probably talk about what exactly the film's about at this point.
I
It's
just
a
realized
yeah.
how fucked that is in context.
Let me move my mic away from my face one second.
Okay, man, you're oh, that hurt my earsies. Ooh, James, you just blew out my eardrums, boy.
I'm sorry.
You're good.
A notable
Hey,
thing about
remember, my migraine's not 100% gone. Be
I'm
careful.
sorry. I'm sorry. But a
You're
notable
good.
thing but a notable thing about this film is that it does not have really any dialogue. It's not
No,
a narrative film. It's not like a large majority of films. It's very experimental, and the only thing way we can really tell like the synopsis kind of is just this little character, the assassin, the gas mask looking guy that's on the cover. He travels through a nightmare underworld of tortured souls, ruined cities, and wretched monstrosities. And
Hmm.
he's basically going around. He's got this little briefcase, and he's trying to blow up something. The briefcase has like TNT in it, but each one of the he finds this mountain of cases and sets it next to them and tries and sets the timer, but he gets taken down and dragged off. And just before the clock hits where it would complete the circuit, it ticks back and then ticks forward, and then ticks back again, and then continues ticking forward in that same fashion, like a
Yeah,
kind of
it stalls out a little bit.
yeah. So
Yeah, this and I feel like a lot of or what I've heard of the reasons why a lot of people didn't necessarily like this film is it's very not I don't want to say silent film-esque because there definitely is sound, but not like audible sound. Like
there's a
there's
lot of yeah,
maybe like literally I think the only amount of sound that's kind of like
there's a lot of sound in this film. It's very
well yeah,
has
this
very yeah,
yeah, like literally there's no audible dialogue.
it
And
has
consists
very good
almost
sound design.
entirely of stop motion animation and puppet work.
Yeah,
I mean, there are a few live action sequences where actors are in puppet suits were used, but that's about it. There's not really any sound, you know?
and the live action blends quite well with the claymation as well.
Oh yeah, like I think literally the only amount of sound, the only actual amount of sound is this arrival of a creature who looks like a 1600s plague doctor. Best character, by the way, in the movie. She's fucking gorgeous.
Absolutely
Holy
phenomenal.
shit. I love her so much. But this creature comes up. We'll get we'll kind of brief topic it a little bit. But she kind of comes into frame and she speaks in Italian. Now, James actually looked this up for us because I had no fucking clue what the hell she was saying. But apparently, there was a movie that was released in 1969, and I'm probably gonna butcher the name of this, but I'm gonna try my best. I believe it was called Fellini Satyricon. But there was a movie that came out, and there was a scene in that movie which was spoken. This is the dialogue of one of the characters who is named Emiliopus, I think was his name. It was he was dying, and this is the last words that he said. Those are the only words of complete meaning in this whole fucking film. That is it. I
Yeah,
mean, there's like a little creature in there, um, that's like Mr. Bill, that's the only other that made me laugh so hard, but that's the only other thing of dialogue in this movie. That
yeah.
and Mr. Bill and
A bit of a
Mr. Bill had ass.
it's a very underreaction as the character, a like kind of a smaller characters watches their friend get dragged away to be
I
eaten.
don't think it was her
And
friend. I think it was like a mom and their baby. That's
yeah,
that's
so,
the take that I got from it.
yeah, and it watches the baby get dragged away, and
A
instead of
spidery
reacting very
creature.
strongly, it just kind of goes, "Oh no,
No, James, you have to do the voice correctly.
oh no," yeah,
Thank you. You know what? That's a great performance. Bravo, bravo.
but yeah. That's the only other really dialogue, I guess, that's in there.
Yeah, literally the only thing of dialogue. Also, James, I believe you brought this to attention because I didn't fucking know any. I don't know anything really. But didn't you say that this was like one of the only three theatrically released animated films of 2020 or the 2020s that were unrated?
It was that alongside a couple others, if I can
I think
find
I
them.
remember you told me one was The Spine of Night, which I don't think I've heard of.
Yeah,
I can't remember the other one you
the
told
Spine
me.
of Night and Crypto Zoo.
Crypto Zoo.
Both we
Crypto
have not
Zoo.
watched yet, but I'd like to.
Yeah, that sounds really cool.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, oh, another cool thing that I remember about this movie, almost every last shot in the film is done in a single take. That is so fucking impressive, especially for stop motion. Like, holy
Yeah.
crap, I couldn't do that. I mean, I couldn't stop motion animate to begin with. It took like a bazillion, gazillion takes to even make one, like a person make one tiny little step.
It's very stop motion is well known for being incredibly difficult,
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
and I have a lot of respect for stop motion. I grew up watching like Wallace and Gromit and like Shaun the Sheep and stuff like that. So stop
Hmm.
motion's always had a very special place in my heart, especially animated mediums. And it's just
Yeah.
I like stop motion a great deal.
Oh yeah. I know that I think the only like I don't want to say Tim Burton-esque because I know that he didn't direct a lot of these. Or maybe he didn't at all, I don't know. But, the big one when I think of stop motion, the big ones that I think of are, like, Coraline, Corpse Bride, Nightmare Before Christmas, The Box Trolls, that kinda
Yeah,
that's all the stuff that I watched when I was growing up, and I loved it. I ate that shit up.
I really liked a lot of those films as well, especially like Box Trolls. That was very fun. Nightmare Before Christmas is a very, very important film to me. I used to watch that
So
every
good.
Christmas, basically.
Yeah, literally, and Halloween and every day. Oh, I found
Corpse
something
Bride's
very
another good
interesting, hon.
example. Hmm?
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
I was saying Corpse Bride's another good example of that.
Oh, Corpse Bride's so fucking good. I love that movie. That's definitely one of my favorite movies. I love Corpse Bride.
Me too.
Um, yeah, I've actually found I came across when I was doing some research as much as I fucking could, and you'll see why. We're trying to sift through a little bit of the facts because talking about trying to analyze what the fuck this movie is so hard. There is not really, and that's what I love about it, is that you can look at this movie and just go, "What the fuck did I just watch?"
Yeah, it,
There has to be something that this means. Like you can go so many different directions, and you could be right or you could be wrong. You
yeah,
will never know.
because Phil himself has said there's no definitive interpretation of this film.
Yeah. And
Uh,
I love Phil. He's fantastic. He also looks like Santa Claus. He looks like such an old man, like such a nice old man. Like he looks like someone who knows how to make a kick-ass glass of lemonade.
he's a great guy.
Yeah, he looks so fucking sick. But I found a quote from him from a interview that he conducted or conducted in 2020. Well, not conducted. Somebody conducted an interview with him in 2022. Um where he actually did talk about some and present some insight into making the film. And he said, and I quote, "Sometimes on the weekends, I would get as many as like 15 to 20 people to come in, and these are people that I picked up giving talks around the Bay Area and whatnot. Most
Yeah,
of them didn't have any experience working with tools, and so I would spend during the week a little bit of time figuring out what the processes would be. And then on the weekends, when they would show up, I would show them. I couldn't have done it without them because a lot of the stuff was so involved and tedious. One of the sets was these hills and mountains of dead army men or soldiers that took between 4 and 6 people over 3 years to build. Let's process that. For one scene, which is maybe like a few seconds at least, maybe a minute or so at most, took 3 fucking years. Oh
yeah,
my God. The dedication that went into this movie is immaculate. I'm telling you.
it's incredibly
Th-
impressive what was done.
3 years, dude. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
3 whole years. That's a lot of patience from a person. A
I know. I
lot
I
of fucking
couldn't. I
patience.
really couldn't. I can see why they sent him to the hospital. Dear God. And oh, honey, I remember you're actually when the movie well actually I think it was this was during the movie. Because I before I watched this movie, I was telling James that stuff that I've heard about this movie was that it was very Eraserhead-ish. I have not seen Eraserhead. James has. So I feel like you're the one that is able to explain this a little better. Would you say that is the case at all?
Very much so, especially the use of children, especially the baby that's they pull out of. This is a bit in there where they have a live surgery on the assassin when he gets
Hmm.
taken, and they rip it open his abdomen while he's still alive, and they go rooting through his body, and they pull out this squirming worm baby that looks very Eraserhead esque. The baby in Eraserhead is also a worm-like creature that screams and cries constantly. And I can't help just think, even with the tone of this film, I can't help but feel like it's a reference to Eraserhead.
Yeah.
Now, another reference that I noticed, especially with the latter end of this movie, where there was a that like scene of the universe being created and everything, there's a bit in there with all the stars and everything lining up, well, not the stars, the planets lining up, and then things that look exactly like the monolith from 2001: Space Odyssey go flying around and hit planets, and especially like the bit where there's all sorts of colors and like and shapes that looks like the galaxy. There isn't a section exactly like that at the end of 2001: Space Odyssey, and I can't help it. It's definitely, without a doubt, a reference to that film.
Oh yeah, for sure. At least that's what I got from it, but um yeah, it was really interesting because if you like movies that have a designated story that's easy to comprehend and follow along, you might not like this movie. I'm gonna state that right now. This movie is definitely for very specific audience,
This
and
movie's not for
Phil
everyone.
knows that. That's the entire idea that he had behind the movie and what he had in mind when he was making the movie. Not and you have to understand, and this is I think me and James literally got into a conversation about this the other day, actually, as a matter of fact, that so when you look at a movie, whether that be this specific film or not, the director and the crew who made the movie have a specific vision in mind when they are going through the process of creating this film. They have a specific demographic, a specific audience that they have in mind when they're making these films. And a lot of people seem to either completely disregard or not comprehend the fact that that is the case.
Yeah,
So, because the thing about experimental films is you can't take them up front. You need to you need to have a very open mind, I feel like, when you're
they're,
watching these kind of movies.
they're films that are
Because
made to make you think.
yeah, specifically like this in Skinamarink especially, which will be his later episode. We'll definitely be coming up with that. But those two films, because we watched these literally basically back to back, and they even though they have like completely different ideas, very different plots, very different styles, they're basically essentially, I feel like, the same in essence, if that makes sense. Like they're
Yeah,
kind of based off of the same what's the word I'm looking for? Foundations, I guess.
similar. Yeah,
Yeah, like they have a very they're very they're very okay. There has to be a better way for me to explain this. They're very similar in the fact that they're very experimental-esque, but they're do it in their own very unique ways. There you
yeah.
go. Good job, brain.
We've been watching a fair amount of experimental films recently, mostly because of me, because that's mainly what I've been
I
picking up
love
on.
experimental films. I don't they have my
I,
love, truly.
I like the things that break the mold like that. I think they're fun.
I
And
love weird shit. I do. I love weird movies. And movies that like literally if anyone comes up to me, it's like, ew, that movie sucks. I'm like, you know what? I want to watch it even more now. Thanks, bud.
yeah,
But like but yeah, like literally this movie going up front, it's very because okay, I heard before watching this movie, when I was kind of looking into it, because I've heard the name and I heard a very brief synopsis or whatever about what it was about. And I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. I love stop motion. Sure, why not? And of course, I told James about it because I know he loves stop motion. So I told him about it. And when we were doing research to try to figure out more about this movie to see if we really wanted to watch it, a lot of people online said that it was very disgusting, very gory, very scat fetishy.
And honestly, I don't believe that's true. After seeing
No,
the film,
yeah, we watched this, we're like, no, no.
and this movie didn't feel like it was made to gross people out either. It has a grimy aesthetic, but it doesn't feel gross to me, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, no, it didn't. Like, if you look at the characters in the movie and like the stylization of the characters, yeah, you can see how they're gross. Like they're very, very unique, um, very what's the word? Not sculpted. They're not very pristine characters. Like you have a lot of characters that are have really weird textures, like fuzzy guys, very smooth, crinkly, warty, lumpy, roddy, um, very
Like
um
the little dudes that were the.
disabled, like very not conventionally attractive looking characters.
There's not a single character in this film that I can see looking conventionally attractive, but I think everything in this film looks beautiful.
Oh yeah, it's fucking gorgeous. And I know like it's very gorgeous in a fucked up way. But I think that's what really makes it beautiful because you don't get to see a lot of movies gross, you know? Because usually when you think of stop motion, you think of I guess more kid-friendly films. Like again, Coraline, I don't know. But yeah, you usually don't think of shit like this, where it's deliberately disgusting, vulgar-ish, um, hellish, you know?
Yeah,
Hello? Oh, there you are. I was like, what the fuck?
I was just trying not to talk over you.
Oh, you're good. Sorry. I'm done with my little segment, James, if you wanna.
I gotcha. But yeah, this film, let's see. I guess we can kind of talk about it like a storyline. This does have some slight religious undertones in a way. For
Mm-hmm.
instance, the very first shot we see in the film is this big tower, which you'll probably be able to see if you look up anything about the film.
Yeah.
And the tower heavily reminds me of the Tower of Babylon. And it even has a line, the only spoken written uh, words is in the prologue of this big sheet that's a bit from Leviticus.
Yeah, it
It's
was
yeah,
Leviticus.
yeah. Leviticus. I forgot what the exact uh, little paragraph line number is, but it's a portion from Leviticus talking about God being wrathful towards people who are disobeying Him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was I believe it was Leviticus 26:14,
Yes, that one.
46.
So there are some religious undertones. It seems, from what I'm gathering with this movie, it seems to suggest, it seems to be like kind of a commentary on this world, as in only a mad god would create something this, like this, in that
Yeah.
not like an angry god, but an insane god.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, like so literally, so the first three scenes of this movie give us very powerful images that basically set the tone for the film that is to follow. Like James said, we have this ancient stone tower that's descended upon a dark cloud, a small metal pod being lowered into like a war zone of artillery machines, gas masks,
Which
and
notably, the pod is a diving bell.
it is. Yeah, it's this little diving bell that just kind of goes down into this hellscape universe. And if you guys that are listening aren't very religious, I will read you guys the quote from the book of Leviticus because I think it very well insinuates what it is that like I think you'll Yeah, let me just read it. I think you'll be able to understand. I don't have the words for it, but if after all this you will not listen to me, I will punish you for your sins 7 times over. You will eat the flesh of your sons and the flesh of your daughters. I will destroy your high places, cut down your incense altars, and pile your dead bodies on the lifeless forms of your idols. And I will abhor you. I will turn your cities into ruins and lay waste your sanctuaries, and I will take no delight in the pleasing aroma of your offerings. I myself will lay waste the land so that your enemies who live there will be appalled. I will scatter you among the nations and will draw out my sword and pursue you. Your land will be laid waste and your cities will lie in ruins. Then the land will enjoy its Sabbath years all the time that it lies desolate and you are in the country of your enemies. Then the land will rest and enjoy its Sabbath.
And that's the opening quote that we get to see for this film.
hmm So we have this entire quote that's like written on like a parchment in like scripture, and it's fucking gorgeous.
It's very pretty looking. Like I said, everything in this
It's
film is very pretty to me.
yeah, such a strong fucking opening. Like we clicked the movie on this opening, we looked at each other like, oh, hell yeah. We were like, oh, this is gonna be fantastic. We already know. It was so pretty, so gorgeous.
It frankly kind of saddens me to see people dismiss this film so often as being just
For
simply gross
sure.
because I find this film very beautiful.
It's gorgeous. But yeah, like literally. So the story for the film is to follow a thin, undefined from the get-go, really. But these opening images tell us a lot about the semiotics of the film and what it's trying to tell us and how we should interpret it, I feel like, in a sense. Because again,
Yeah,
with experimental films, you can look at it any way you want. You can interpret it any way you want. That's the glory of the movie. That's why it was made. For you, the audience, to look at this and spin it into what you believe the story is about. And I think that's fantastic
yeah,
because literally two people could watch it and they could get a completely different reaction out of it. Like me and James, we watched this movie and afterwards we were talking about it and discussing it and we came out of it with two different ideas of what the movie could have been about.
yeah.
And it's not something to fight about, like, oh, you're wrong, I'm right kind of thing. It's a thing of being able to come up with your own ideas and share it with people. And because I think that again, that's the glory of film. You because of course, usually there's some films with a direct story, a deliberate story, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, this superhero kicked this bad guy's butt, and he saved the day, yippee, and that's what the story is. But with experimental stuff like this, that's not usually the case, and that's always really, really fun and interesting because you can come out of it any way you want.
Yeah, that's the beauty of these types of films is the aspect of being able to, well, discuss it, have your own opinion on what happened.
hmm
I when I was in high school, I really enjoyed specifically English class and talking about like trying to find different interpretations of works and trying to find little like maybe subliminal stuff that the person put in there. Not that like this is like definitely what they meant. I'm discovering what true thing this person left for me now. I just really like discussing and interpreting things like that. It's always been a favorite thing of mine, and that's one of the reasons I love these types of films so much. I just love the aspect of getting to discuss and interpret and kind of fill our own story, not have to follow a set story that was made by someone else.
I could not have said it better, honey.
Yeah. It's just a personal favorite thing of mine.
Oh yeah. I I feel like that's why we like books so much because we're fucking nerds, as you couldn't tell already. You guys known us long enough. But I like literally like what James said, is just nothing that's more fantastic and beautiful and interesting than looking at a piece of art, whether that be a film or a book or something like that, and be like, yeah, this is what I think it is. I don't care what you say. I this is what I believe and this is what I take for it.
Yeah. And there's no wrong opinions on what it could be either.
Oh no, never.
Yeah. That's just not how that type of thing functions.
Like for instance, like yeah, like literally, just from this opening scene alone, again, you could like at least the impression that it gave us is just like we have the Tower of Babel imagery that James told us about. Maybe even the destruction of Judah by Babylon. That's also something that I got from it. So, if you don't know religious scripture, these are both images of a wrathful God of the Old Testament. They foreshadow this incredibly dark story about like an unseen evil force, oppression, violence, desolation, and our unnamed lead character, which I think is the assassin.
Yes, the
He doesn't have an
assassin.
actual name. He's just the assassin.
Yes,
But
the
the
assassin. Yeah.
assa okay, thank you. I just want to make sure. But yeah, the assassin in is basically evidently about to descend down into a world ruled by such a wrathful god, which we don't really ever, I believe, see this god that they're talking about. Um, and it could really be anybody, or it could be no one. Because when the seed opens up with the Tower of Babel, on the tippy top of the tower is like this very dark, shadowy, scraggly, fine creature entity like thing
Something
that
I
just gets struck down by lightning and just blows up into all these little particles.
Something that I noticed about that creature that gets struck in the beginning is it looks very similar to the Plague Doctor that we see later.
That I didn't I didn't think about that. Holy shit.
If you look at
I
it,
didn't realize that.
it just reminds me heavily of the Plague Doctor in the aspect of the flowiness of the tendrils that are coming off it. Look exactly like how it looks in the with the Plague Doctor there.
Do you think it's the same character, or do you think it's like maybe one of her kind that just
I
kind
yeah,
of
I don't think it's the same character personally. I just feel like it wouldn't really fit the story.
no,
But it reminds me very heavily of that character. It's just a
you
little
have
neat
such a good
detail.
eye. I didn't even look at I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, that's just an interesting little detail I noticed.
But yeah, like hmm, Mad God is such an insane movie. Like it has a massive undertaking of visual storytelling and a complex setup for a story told without dialogue, but through mostly what is feelings and symbols. It is so fucking hard to do that. Not just because it's obtuse and because it's grotesque in its aesthetics, but I'm gonna say it. It's probably one of the greatest works of stop motion animation ever fucking created. It's gorgeous in every fucking way.
I'll have to agree with you there, especially. I think this is one of my favorite, uh, for, well, works of stop motion in recent memory.
It's so stylized and it's fucking awesome. Like it's it like literally it's violent, it's bloody, it has complete desecration of humanity. It's very it's very Lovecraftian
Very
in
Lovecraft.
its sense of its horrific world of death and consumption, and it makes it fucking gorgeous.
Yeah,
Like this movie's gross. I love it.
yeah. This movie does grossness. Like I said, it's kind of a gross movie, but it's not disgusting, if that makes sense.
No. And I feel like that's completely up to what your level of tolerance is when it comes to movies like this, because I'm not saying so James and I aren't saying that it's gross in the sense of Saw or Human Centipede or something like that. It's gross in the sense of how real it is, I believe, because there is shit like this that does probably happen in the real world. And I feel like it's not making it stylized, but it's doing so in such a way where you can, I guess, dissect it and have it like bam in your face a lot easier in that way.
And when we say this stuff like this, similar to stuff like this happens in real life, we're talking about this depicts some real world atrocities that happen. There's
Yeah.
war in it. There's sexual violence in a way,
Mhm.
uh, and all of it's highly stylized, and we're there to just kind of well talk about the real world, talk about things that
Yeah.
happen, show them in this bizarre, fucked up way. and kind of make you question how it actually is, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, because again, if you look at the full story of it, like um, so I guess it'd be easier to try to get into the actual plot and what we can. So this story that we realize is kind of told in episodic snippets in passing, and what we mean by that is basically is seen descending deeper into the belly of this endless abyss where it's just malformed abominations, monstrous creatures, like twisted, disgusting technology exist together to consume the life and energy of the beings that live there. Like we have um, these little hairy guys. I don't think they have a
They're
name ever.
yeah, kind of workers in a way, because they're seen being
Yeah,
made in a kind of a molten press, and they're
yeah.
being just created, and a lot of them get killed off in honestly somewhat funny ways. I know it doesn't.
It's
I don't think
so
it's intended to
funny.
be funny, but it came off as funny.
It
There's
did.
these
Especially this, like when he got hit by flying
yeah,
bricks or something.
there's these metal bricks that are being manufactured throughout the thing, and very often these bricks will just because they are transported by just kind of flying around, and quite often these bricks will just take out one or two of these guys just at random, just
Yeah.
and
Oh yeah.
they die just
Remember
all over the fucking place.
all over the place. Remember the few that got ran over by the steamroller and like
Yeah,
the on the thing of the steamroller, you can see like the squished bodies of the other like people like of little worker hairy guys that got like crushed before them. Like, oh man.
yeah, like a lot of them die. Like
But
their lives are worth literally nothing. And I,
literally nothing.
in my opinion, these guys are meant to be workers, just people in the real world. I think they're meant to
Hmm.
symbolize people who live are forced to kind of, live to work.
Yeah. One scene I feel that stuck with me from this film, especially, is that scene where the assassin goes into like the city where these worker hairy guys are
They
residing
completely
and
ignore him
working.
too.
Yeah, completely ignore him. They don't really pay much attention to him as he goes on. And the assassin goes to like this little trap door, I think. It's like another door, kind of
Yeah,
like going downwards into something like a more just some lower part of this world. And one of these little hairy guy people come up to him and it's like he's like making a friend. It's like one
yeah.
of the only like actual interactions that we get from one of these characters. And the assassin, I guess one of these grotesque, I think I'm not too sure what the role of this creature is.
Kind of an
Um
overseer in a way.
he was like one of this lumpy, roddy, like elephant looking creature that had like the biggest fucking testicles I've ever seen in my
Yeah,
life. These big balls. And he is coming around the alley because you can see his shadow on the wall. And he comes in and just fucking destroys this little hairy guy. Like he
yeah.
just fucking shoves him to the ground and steps him and stomps on him until he's dead. And this assassin is just forced to watch from underneath this trap door as this little guy is killed, and he has no choice but to go on because he's there for a mission and he has to get it done.
You
But
can't
I
do anything
felt
about it
like
in the
that
first place.
no, he can't. But
Yeah.
I that scene really stuck to me because I feel like that encompasses the entire thing about these little guys is that they are just these little tools in the society for working for whoever is the higher up in this hierarchy, and their lives mean nothing to the people in charge. They're they are there to do a job, and if something happens, they make more. They would just get replaced on the daily.
Yeah.
Like there is so much death of those guys specifically in this movie. There's mounds of corpses in the background. We see tons of corpses when the assassins walking through this area. We see tons of corpses just everywhere of those guys. They clearly there's so many dead bodies that they start building buildings on top of the piles of justices. It's so fucked.
And there's also a another portion. There's a lot of mountains of corpses that we'll wind up seeing in this film. One of the other
Hmm.
ones that was, which is kind of really impressive when you think about the fact that this is claymation. I remember specifically one scene that was a mountains and mountains of dead soldiers was created by students partially that were working with them, and it took like a team of 6 people 3 years of melting together those guys and posing that scene to make that one specific scene.
And it's fucking insane. Like 3 years for one scene. God.
The
And it
amount
came
of
out
work,
gorgeously.
the amount of work that went into this film is just beyond
So
impressive.
good. So good. And that scene was fucking gorgeous. It was so smooth. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
I
Gorgeous.
highly suggest.
Mwah.
Yeah, I highly suggest if you're interested in this film, look up Mad God and click on images and just kind of scroll around a little bit, because
There,
there's no way you can really spoil this movie.
no, you can't. Like, we'll probably put a spoiler warning just because people will be like, "Oh, I was going to watch this movie." Just literally, we are just a spoiler heaven here. I don't know what to tell you, dog.
Wait, really? Apparently,
Yeah,
a VR, a 2-minute short VR version of this movie was released.
yeah, I believe that was that part two that I was telling you about earlier. Like, like, it just did short in 2015.
Now, this one was made in 2016.
Oh, well, maybe it's that same one then, because 2015 is the one year before 2016.
Maybe.
But yeah, these yeah, like literally, if you really think about it, yes, this is a horror movie, obviously, but I feel like we're the horror that horror is just the status quo that feeds the creatures living under the surface of this world. It's like a deep vision of a world where industry and evil seem to work perpetually for their own sake. Like a monstrosity that only seems to function for the sake of the desecrating life and littering the landscape with skeletons and machinery to do so. That's the only point. They don't care about the creatures that live here. If you're in the way of their vision, they'll get rid of you. They don't give a shit. And that's scary.
And a running theme that happens in this film is that absolutely nothing seems to have any sort of sensitivity towards violence or anything like that. Violence just happens throughout this film.
Hmm.
Nothing bats an eye. There's a bit where it's one of the first shots in the film where the assassin walks out of his diving bell and walks near that hotel, and he uses his binoculars, looks through windows. There's one of someone, from what I've heard, watching porn on a screen, on like a screen. Another of a
Hmm.
person playing piano, and then in the next room over, just someone being stabbed to death.
Yeah. I've heard of it as like kind of, it looked kind of like a whorehouse, like a brothel
Yeah,
in my eye. But then again, that could also just be me looking at it too analytically, I think. I don't know. That's just kind of the vibe I got from it.
that's also where that creature, the one that's all over the artwork for this film, that has like the human-looking like denture teeth. That's where
Yeah,
that
I
thing
love
walks
him.
out of. Yeah, and
Loved him.
that character is one of the other like first immediate bits of violence because it has this cleaver that it's wielding in its hand, and it walks out and drags this little character that looks a lot like the Invisible Man, but with like a worm tail instead of legs,
Yeah, he doesn't have like
and
little
yeah,
leggies.
and just absolutely slices him up, like cuts the absolute living hell out of the thing.
Yeah. Like for reference, um like very lumpy monster of the dentures. I took one look at this characters and I immediately thought of Slimer from Ghostbusters.
It does kind of look like Slimer a little bit. I can see Slimer in that.
Yeah, like if someone made like one of those realistic sculptures, like if Trevor Henderson made Slimer, I feel like this is what that character looks like.
Yeah,
But yeah, like this movie has violence and gore, and it's not afraid with it. Like one of these scenes, like later on in the movie, is a scene where a doctor and a nurse are performing uh I don't even want to call it surgery because they're not fixing anything.
bit of restoration.
But yeah, so they well, I guess we have to follow it up with a little bit. So the assassin has, like James said earlier, has this briefcase, which when you open it up, it's like this clock with a bunch of dynamite in it. And he sets the clock, and presumably he sets the bomb to go off soon. And there is this huge mound of suitcases. Now, remember when James earlier said that whenever the assassin was walking through this area, this land, no one really paid attention or noticed that he was there. And it's not like he blended in or anything. Like he was for sure out of place.
Yeah, he's not trying to blend in any way, shape, or form.
No, he's
He's
very
very out of
different.
place. He's a large human. He's a relatively large humanoid character, wearing the gas mask, protective gear, and like the leather coat and everything. He doesn't
Hmm.
look like anything else around him.
No, very different. But he goes up to this mound of suitcases and he sets the clock to go ahead and I guess blow this whole world up because there's so many suitcases. It's not until he sets this suitcase to go off that he gets snatched and just yoinked. And that's the scene that James was talking about where the clock ticks down like it's gonna go ahead and go off. And it just kind of gets 1 second before it's supposed to go off, and it just keeps going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and it just keeps doing that.
What's
And
interesting is in the another portion where the another assassin, because there's two of them in this movie, one that gets slaughtered, and the other one that also gets sent down on another mission. That's something we'll talk about in a few moments here.
mhm,
Uh, but the assassin goes past other briefcases, and you'll audibly hear the ticking of the other ones also broken.
yeah, and clocks are very present in this movie. I noticed
Oh
like
yeah,
there's a lot of clocks, lots of clock sounds, and I thought that was super interesting because I'm like, man, there's a lot of clocks, but I
I've
feel
heard,
like
I've
that's
heard, I've heard Phil Tippett himself say that he's always very cognizant of time because as a stop motion animator, it's something that you're made very aware of throughout, like how much time it takes to animate this scene, and
oh yeah, stop
the
motion takes
um,
a long time. You need to be very
yeah,
patient to make stop motion for sure.
and it's the manipulation of time in order to create stop motion in the first place because it's stop
Mm.
motion. It's pictures that are being strung together.
Oh, that's really fucking cool, actually. I didn't notice that. That's awesome. It's a really cool detail, Phil. Damn, Phil, I swear to God, he's fantastic in this movie. Dear God. But, um, yeah, so our assassin gets taken, and this scene was super interesting because it opens up with like a bunch of people in the theater. A lot of people sit down for the theater, and the curtains open, and it's like this little screen that you have, like, to do, like, like, on those screens that, like, people do, like, little shadow puppets and stuff in? It's that. So you see this table with the assassin strapped onto this table, and these 2 people come in, I assume, like, nurses or a doctor, and that we see in a little bit, and they basically just start taking all this guy's clothes off. Like, they take off his gear, throw it on the ground, and that's it, and they turn to the screen, and all the people just in the audience start clapping and the curtains close. Then we see a bunch of little cubicles, and I don't wanna say it's a hospital, it's a very if it is, it's a very fucked hospital, it's
Yeah,
really creepy.
it's a very unsanitary hospital.
Yeah, like, it's like it basically looks like an office, and all the little rooms are a cubicle, but we see a bunch of rooms with blood on the floor and just these little guys strapped to tables, and the only clean room is the one that our assassin was put in, and the nurse and the doctor walk in,
It will not stay
and
clean
the
long.
no, like take a needle, put something in the assassin, and then they just grab a scalpel and start going to town. Like they cut him up, rip open his chest cavity, and then they just start pulling out piles of shit. Like there's jewelry coming out of here, some guts. What else did we notice they pulled out of him? Like
Noticeably, they pulled out ordinary, well, human-looking intestines and bits of gore, but they also notably started pulling out coins, like books,
Like
um,
beads, like
yeah,
jewelry beads.
necklaces, things like that. Until that's when they finally pull out that Eraserhead baby.
Yeah, like the little wormy baby.
And at that point, somehow the assassin is still alive, and then they drill a
Mm-hmm.
hole in his head and snake a camera in there. Uh, and that's how they watch. That's how we as an audience find out why the assassin's down there, because it cuts to this other like upper world where the character that's titled the Last Man, he's got these like really long fingernails and toenails, uh, collecting a map from three witches that have sewn it together, like a leather one.
Mm-hmm.
And then he walks into this room that has millions of assassins, all lined up like soldiers. Walks up to this another assassin in a diving bell, hands him the map, and down he goes.
Yeah.
And it's kind of shown like why the assassin's down there in the first place, as he was sent by this first man or last man.
Yeah, it's so just yeah, like this guy is one of the human actors that are in it. He's not the last man is not stop motion, but he has like these super long finger and toenails, and he's just walking around doing his thing. And I can't remember what the fuck we were talking about the other day. I was so proud of the revelation I came up with, but damn, what the fuck was it? Um, you don't happen to remember, do you?
I can't say I do. I'm sorry.
It's okay, I figured. Damn. Maybe it'll come back to me. I don't know, but I was very proud of myself. I don't know. Maybe we'll come back to it as
It might,
we
yeah.
talk about the movie. But
And after this portion is when we meet the alchemist, which is this strange little. It switches to a kind of a cleaner portion of the film almost, where it's got a
hmm
lot less overtly gross things happening.
yeah. Oh, honey, do
Uh,
you mind if I input something here while we're still on that surgery scene?
yes, go right ahead.
Yeah, just something super quick. So a lot of people have talked about the idea that the assassin that we see at the beginning of the movie is the same one that we see at the end of the movie. I don't think that's true. Because and I understand why people think this way, because the surgeon, after they take the little larva creature out of him and the nurse kind of takes it away from the room, the surgeon drills a hole in the assassin's head and hooks his brain to a television set. And as the surgeon watches the TV, the world above is shown, and that's where we see the depiction of the last man and the witches with the map and sending the other assassin down in the into the other world. Um Again, like James said, the witches sew a leather map. The map that we see the our assassin have in the beginning of the movie is made of paper, and it falls apart
Correct.
every time he takes it out. So I believe that this is a different guy because I think what's happening is that they learn every time they send an assassin down to this world and one fails, given the huge amount of briefcases that are down there, they take what failed and try to correct it to get more of a successful chance. And it's at that point with this last assassin that they prove to be successful because they've taken all of the failed attempts and corrected them to make it so that it tries not to happen again.
Yeah. I personally believe that the assassin we see get knocked down and by that creature when he's placed in the briefcase in the first one, I believe that assassin dies right there. I don't believe that he's the same one we see on the
The
hospital bed,
table?
because otherwise the scene of it being drilled into his head wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. Because and the only way I can think of that would be them looking at its memory, and it didn't experience that. It's not the same person. So I believe that the assassin we see in the hospital bed is the one that we see driving like the Jeep and the motorcycle.
Oh, so you're saying that it's not the first guy we see, it's the second one.
That's what I believe.
Oh, okay. You know what? That actually makes a lot of sense, honey. But yeah, actually, because I was wondering why they have the TV there and they put it seems because Don't they play through the entirety of that scene with the other assassin before we come back to the doctor, where the TV
Yeah,
kind of switches off?
yeah. They go through the entirety of that section with the second assassin, right down to him driving down into that little hole before the TV switches off.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what confused me. I was so confused. I'm like, okay, there has to be a reason for that, right? I think you literally just put the last piece of the puzzle in for me.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being smarter than me. I didn't even catch that. I
I
was
just
I was just
yeah.
sitting there like, wait a second, hang on.
I just personally believe that that's what happened in that portion.
That makes so much more sense than what the fuck I was thinking. Thank you for being smarter than me, dear.
I'm not smarter, but
You
like
are.
that.
Shushed.
Okay,
I love you.
I love you too. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
but that's just personally what I believe happens in that scene.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm with you on that one. See, this is why you guys have to discuss movies. Not everyone's gonna get the same thing from it.
Yeah,
Healthy discussions is good. It's not a
yeah,
sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength because you're brave enough to discuss it without making yourself look like a jackass.
yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, anyway, this guy, this assassin, the other this assassin too, um, like has a motorcycle and he drives his Jeep. And I realized that we don't really see much of him after because he goes through this map and like he goes through like some sort of depot looking thing, graveyard, a whole fucking war zone, by the way. Like we're
Yeah.
not talking just we're just talking about like people actively trying to shoot each other. It's fucking insane.
I almost also don't believe there's any people left in that scene that are shooting at each other. I feel like the tanks are automated machines that are shooting at each other because of the
Oh,
sheer amount of bodies we see, and we never see a single moving body that is a soldier in that section.
okay. I was thinking that maybe it was just like the people that were fighting and that were just kind of like the inhabitants of this other world. Like people that are actively trying to fight for change, but they die doing so.
Yeah.
Then again, I don't know. I'll probably have to watch the movie. Here's the thing: this is definitely one of those movies where you would probably have to watch it again just to go over things that you missed because there's so much to look at.
Okay, I'm gonna need to watch this plenty more times.
It's so gorgeous. Like I swear, it's gonna be definitely one of those movies where every time you watch it, you're gonna notice something new.
I want a physical copy of this just so I can put it on and just watch it anytime I want because this is something
You,
that I need to watch like maybe 3 or 4 times to get the hang of.
yeah, Bill, take my money. You've earned it, man.
Yeah.
Take my money.
I tried looking for a physical copy of this, but the one that I found on Blu-ray wasn't able to be played back in the US for some strange reason.
That's weird. Did they give a reason or just kind of just you can't? Sorry.
It had a like wrong playback region, I guess, which I've
Mm.
never seen before in a movie.
Yeah, I can't say. Well, I guess things happen.
Yeah,
Maybe one day. Maybe one day.
yeah. I'll definitely get a copy of this at some point because I want a copy of this.
That'd be so cool. Hell yeah. But yeah, this guy, our second assassin, goes to like the grid looking thing. And he takes his Jeep and he goes down. That's the last that we see of him. We don't really see him much after that.
Yeah, that's unless of course that's the character that we see drilled.
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course. Which is very possible, given the information that James has presented. Yeah, I can see how it could be him.
yeah. That's just what I personally think.
Yeah, fair enough. So after this guy, back in the underworld, and this is like probably like a lot of people say this is the most boring part of the movie. This is my fucking favorite part of the
Yeah.
movie. Like
It kind
literally
of
as
almost
the movie goes on, it gets better and better. I
it
swear.
kind of almost drifts into a fantasy type realm for a little bit
Mm-hmm.
because there's a lot brighter colors. There's a lot more fantasy-esque creatures. Like it just feels more storybooky almost.
Yeah. Like you know what? I don't know why this portion of the movie like from the Alchemist part of the movie, it gave me Labyrinth and Dark Crystal vibes.
Yeah,
I just got that kind of vibe from it, and but I love those movies. I know that, and also you can fight me if you say you hate Dark Crystal and find it boring. Dark Crystal is a beautiful film. Shut the fuck up. Leave me
I,
alone. I love that movie.
I really like Dark Crystal as well.
A lot of people say it's boring. I don't see how, man. I mean, it's not Labyrinth. It's very different, but it's a good movie. I love it.
Yeah,
Yeah, that and Never Ending Story. That was another thing that I thought of that this movie kind of reminded me of, or at least the sequence of this movie reminded me of it.
it does remind me of that as well.
Yeah, it's hell yeah. But yeah, so the nurse that we see earlier goes down this like thing that looks like a fucking map from Elden Ring. And we go to this door, and this door opens up, and this beautiful, ghostly, floating creature that is very plague. Like she has wearing a plague doctor, and I'm assuming this is she because she was wearing a dress and stuff. Like her getup is very feminine, and I
It
love
feels
her so
feminine,
much. Very feminine. But
especially in the way it
this
carries the child.
yeah, this creature shows up with a plague doctor mask. Her hat's amazing. She has like one of those sombrero hats with like um the like strings hanging off of it, like bones and beads and stuff that kind of like clinks and dangles when she moves her. Like she has like ribbons floating off of her hat. She has like a very elegant gown and like little like crow fingers. I love her. She is my favorite character because she's not disgusting in any way, shape, or form. She's legitimately like I know that's probably not the vibe that I'm supposed to get from this creature or any creature in this film, but just looking at her, I feel very calm and reassured.
Yeah,
Like
it
she
feels
looks like a kind of person that would just kind of give you a hug if you were having a bad day. That's the kind of
it.
vibe I got from her.
Yeah, because we've seen nothing but grotesque monsters this whole time. Seeing her almost kind of regrounds you. It's a
Hmm.
beautiful character rather than the nasty and grotesque ones we've been seeing, and it really calls in question what exactly she is, because it seems to be
Yeah,
one of the few things in this realm that is not suffering in any way, shape, or form.
yeah. And out of because we see a lot of characters in this movie, I think that in this specific universe, the best characters to be would be her and the alchemist because they live in this castle and they
Yeah,
create glitter. They just make glitter out of larva babies.
that
And
is what happens with the child that she's carrying. Is she carries it to this press, crushes the thing, of course, because it's Mad God. This you can't have not have brutality,
of course.
and
We have to have
yeah,
child death, right? Well, I don't know.
yeah.
Does this technically count as a child?
I it's not quite it cries like a baby the whole time until it gets smashed, but it gets
Hmm.
crushed and refined into this paste, which is further refined into a almost gold powder,
Yeah, it's like
which is
glitter.
yeah, which the plague doctor then pours into this bubble on the wall, and that's when we get into the scenes that are 2001 Space Odyssey esque.
Yeah, which yeah, literally the alchemist, he's a very mean guy, I feel like,
He's
because
very mean.
there's these two monsters which have notable penises. Not
Yeah,
really the penis that we if human genitalia,
yeah.
but
They have
it's like a
genitals though.
little yeah, it looks like a little worm kind of thing. Like
Yeah,
it looks like a leech. There we go.
yeah. And these two are fighting, just squabbling with each other. He
Look,
walks,
shovels.
yeah,
They're
yeah.
hitting each other with shovels.
And the alchemist walks up and shocks the bejesus out of both of them. And at that point, they get back to work shoveling what seems to be excrement that's around them. And
Hmm.
then almost immediately after the alchemist leaves, they get back to fighting each other.
Yeah. So this guy definitely seems like he enjoys torturing people. That's and literally this
Yeah,
guy looks like a tumor with a beard. He looks like a tumor with a beard. Like
he
he's very
laughs.
ugly.
He giggles to himself notably when he feeds those little fantasy-looking creatures to his spider thing.
Yeah, like, cause he goes into like this aquarium tank looking thing and opens the lid, and we just see this gorgeous scene where it's just all shiny, and this is like the most colorful scene in the movie. Because usually the movie is pretty dark and bleak, and it's still gorgeous in its own way, but it's very darker in contrast into this one specific scene where it's all bright colors and
Looks like a trolley
patterns, and it's all
commercial.
yeah. Oh my God, you're so right. I looked like I was about to be fed gummy worms, but actually the little characters look like gummy worms. But
Yeah.
um yeah, it's just all sparkly and glittery. It's fucking beautiful. It's like it looks like right what Rainforest Cafe would be if you snorted or took a bunch of LSD.
Yeah. It's very pretty, very vibrant, and so is the spider creature it lets in. And there's a little bit
Yeah.
in here where there's two cockroaches that watch the baby thing get dragged away by the spider that
Yeah, I love
are
those
playing
guys.
cards. They have like a tea
And
set. They're
drinking
playing
tea.
cards, and it was just felt so Alice in Wonderland esque.
It was so funny. I loved this whole scene. It was so, I don't know. I don't think it's supposed to be, but it was just so funny because we have this like I would have presumed to be a mom and a baby creature. Like they looked like those little I don't know, they looked like a squeaky toy, like a dog's toy. And they're just chilling and the alchemist jumps in a bunch of mealworms, real mealworms by the way. Like
Yeah, these are real living mealworms that are put into this.
yeah,
I
real
know, cause
mealworms.
I feed the same things to my little leopard gecko Hartford over here.
Yeah, your son.
Yeah.
Yeah. Both. Oh, by the way, fun fact about both James and I, we both have pets. He has a leopard gecko, and I have a Pac-Man frog. They both eat these things, so we are very accustomed to what mealworms look and sound
Yeah.
like.
I know exactly what a mealworm looks like, and if they started making sounds, I'd be very concerned.
Yeah. Well, not sounds, but like the rustling of their bedding.
Yeah, and them attempting to claw out of the damn little box.
Yeah, they try. They don't succeed, but they
Yeah,
try. But yeah, so the alchemist dumps a bunch of these little mealworms in here, and this little mom and its baby, I presume, go over and just start eating these little worms and sucking them through the little hole mouth holes. And they look so cute. Like this is so beautiful. And this alchemist laughs. No, because like literally this scene plays out, and both James are like, okay, what's the catch? What's gonna
yeah.
happen?
Because this is the only scene in the film that hadn't had anything terrible happen. I was like, "There's
Yeah.
some fuck shit's gonna
Yeah, we're
happen
like,
soon."
something's gonna happen. And sure enough, as soon as James said that, the alchemist is like, rubs his little grubby mitts together, and he opens a hatch, or it was a button or like a lever or something.
He opens like a lever.
Okay. Yeah, just like this little spidery creature just comes on out, and he just meanders through this little glitter world, and he grabs this little tiny dog toy man and drags him into the abyss. And it's so funny because the mom dog toy creature, literally, it's so funny. Like, she's like,
Yeah,
in
just
that voice,
oh no.
like she literally sounded just like Mr. Bill, and I just immediately thought of Mr. Bill. I just started cracking up laughing. Like, it's just so funny to me. Oh my God.
It was quite funny.
But it was so funny. I don't know why they chose that voice of all, but dear God, it was so perfect. Oh man. But oh, but yeah, so yeah, we knew it. We knew it could be a great thing. It was like, nah, there's no way this is a good scene. There has to be something that happens. And sure enough it did. Oh God.
Hmm.
But yeah, what did you think about this scene? Like, why do you think that he included it? Do you think he included to be a mind fuck to us?
I think he included this because he had the idea for the concept and he just really wanted to make it.
Fair.
Because that's honestly how I feel
Understandable.
about every scene in this film. Is
Yeah.
Phil wanted to make it.
Yeah. He's like, you know what? He's like, man, what scene are we gonna do today? Oh, some kids jump rope. Yeah, that's all right. Some guy working on an essay on a computer. It's okay. We can do something more. Oh, four gigantic people getting electrocuted and shitting into a funnel. That's
Yeah.
it. That's their idea. We got it, boys.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, that's actually how the hairy guys are made. It's
Yeah.
like these four people getting electrocuted. I can't believe we didn't even talk about this. It's
Oh,
these four
I thought I
guys
seen in there.
sitting in like wooden electric chairs with like the little things on their head strapped in, being violently electrocuted. And there's just shit coming out. They are shitting violently into a funnel, and it goes through this machine, and it gets compact pressed, and it makes these little guys. Now, what I literally we both heard before we watched this movie that there was going to be some shit involved. We like not even metaphorical, like just actual shit. We watched it. It doesn't look like shit. I literally the most I got from it is like you poured Powerade down your drain and it just mixed with some of your spaghetti sauce. Like that's what it looks like from
Yeah.
dinner earlier.
It just really doesn't look that gross.
It just looks like dirty sludge, like mud. Like it's like when you bathe your dog in a bucket and then you just dump the water out. That's what it looks like. Just dirty dog bath water. That's literally what it looks like.
Yeah.
I mean, literally the thing that actually legitimately looks like excrement is those piles that those monsters that the alchemist shocks are shoveling. That's literally the thing closest to what looks like shit in this
Yeah.
movie. Oh, another interesting thing, and James, I kind of want to talk this about you because, just you're a guy, so you're probably gonna understand this thing a lot better than I ever will. But and it's not really a personal thing, if anything. But that scene where the alchemist is shocking those two the guys that are hitting each other with the shovels, they get boners. Like I think they're getting like so electrocuted that they just lose bodily function, just kind of bloop.
Yeah.
Um,
It's kind of a thing that happens, like, because it's a part of the body that's affected by electrical charge. If you do get
yeah.
electrocuted that hard, I think that's a real thing that can happen.
Oh, that's interesting. Um, I'm just asking because you are a guy. What do you think the reason for that was? Was it just because like a thing of like, oh, a spur of the moment, like, oh, this is something that will actually happen if this happens to you, or do you think it had like any metaphorical meaning? Because we have creatures that look like they have genitalia, but not necessarily. I think it's like one of the few outright depictions of genitalia that we experience. Because sure, there's movies. There's scenes in this movie where it's like that creepy baby head doll that's masturbating.
Yeah.
And then we have this guy, the boner people, and then the monster orgy near the end of the movie.
There's a lot of sexual things that happen in this movie.
There are, which I was wondering why that was the case, but then again, it could also probably be just narrowed down to what's the word I'm looking for? Honey, help me out here. I'm trying to find a word I can't.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Like like uh, hang on, my Windows startup is happening. Just give me one moment. Um Sexual oppression maybe? No, I don't know.
Hmm.
Not frustration. I don't even know. You get what I'm laying down though, right?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you mean.
Damn it. Um Whatever. I guess it's not important. Um but I feel like that's just another theme of like just the whole if this movie is about kind of oppression dystopian the themes that it has. It's just more like, you know what? You're going to work until the day you die. The only amount of gratification and pleasure that you'll ever get in your life is sex and food and other things that you can do spur of the moment. That's your life.
Yeah, which is the truth for a lot of people.
Yeah. And I
It's
feel like
unfortunate, but yeah.
yeah, I feel like this also really good because a lot of people, I think also that I heard of, complained about the sexual preferences in this movie, which I'm surprised that's the thing that you're concerned about in this movie, but, there's a lot of more fuck shit in this movie than that, but it's more like I feel like that solidifies the point that Phil is trying to get across, is you have all this horrible things happen to people, and no one really bats an eye at it until they're the ones in the limelight of all these problems. Because there are people like I feel like it also ties back, now that I think about it, into the religious aspect, because if you look at the scripture for a bunch of religions, a big portion of it is abstinence until marriage.
Yeah.
And you see a lot of people that are usually what you'd describe as the bottom of the barrel scum kind of creatures depictions engaging in intercourse as a way to cope with the fact that the world around them is fucked and that their lives are fucked.
This film
Because
has a yeah.
yeah, it's like the only bit of pleasure that they have, that little bit of happiness that they have in their life.
Yeah. Because there's not everything in this film suffers in some way, except for a couple, like the plague doctor. That's about it.
Hmm.
But there's just such a repeating cycle of suffering that's shown in this film. It's almost meant to. I almost wonder if it's meant to be a god punishing, like remember with Leviticus,
Hmm.
that whole quote from the beginning of it.
Yeah. And the last few scenes of this movie, after the larva baby has been turned to glitter, it's like this glitter is used to create a like a new cosmos which undergoes the cycle of evolution, civilization, and self-destruction as the previous one, because we see what seems to be a not a flashback, but an omen of sorts to the world that existed beforehand. Because we see depictions of civilizations and cities being built and then immediately just being nuked or crumbling down into a shell of what it once was. And it's in this moment where the clock in the assassin's bomb appears to somehow restart, and it
Yeah,
actually this time completes its circuit
yeah. It's one of the
and
only times that
destroys. Hmm?
yeah, it's one of the only times that it finally completes. And if it's the one that was laid down in that spot, that means that it detonated all of those things of TNT. And something I saw when I was looking through a couple of things uh, was specifically about the TNT. There, someone mentioned that what if the assassins aren't meant to survive until that one, and
Hmm.
their entire purpose was just to pack that much TNT down there.
Oh, that's a good point, actually. I didn't think about that.
Yeah. What if it's meant for them, like not all of them to survive, simply to have a later one take down the same amount of TNT and cause a much larger effect?
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about it. But yeah, so yeah, the bomb goes off and this world just goes away, just gets destroyed. And the last scene of the movie is the last man with the rest of his assassins are just peering into this hole where they send the diving bell down to put the assassins down there. They're just looking down this hole and that's it.
Yeah,
They destroyed what they were going after. Now, I think what this alludes to in a sense, and I hope this maybe might be the point that I was thinking of the other day that I couldn't remember, but and of course I'm not gonna say it as smart as I did over the phone with you. That's not gonna fucking happen. Of course, as soon as I'm recording it, I'm like, "Dur, dur, 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 dur." Uh, but I feel like what this alludes to is the fact that it wasn't until you brought it to my attention, James, that this guy is literally deemed as the last man.
yeah,
What if, yeah, like the last guy? Because we don't see any other humans in this universe. What if this world, the one that he was trying to destroy, took everything from him and he felt like it was in his power to get rid of the evil that he thought was plaguing this world. So he just created these guys, sent them down here to either, like you said, stack up enough explosives that one day, when there's enough, the last guy that gets sent down there sets it all off, and then the whole world goes bye-bye, and he never has to deal with it ever again. Or the fact of he, through multiple series of trial and error, much as life tends to go, because life doesn't usually always go the way you anticipate. There's always
Yeah.
going to be certain events that happen that either inhibit you or challenge you, and that's just how you learn and how you gain experiences and learn to become the person that you end up being. What if that is an illusion of everything that he lost?
Yeah.
Because
I
he
can
didn't
see
get
that.
to have a life, maybe. Because this guy seems pretty old. But
Very old.
if, yeah, but I don't want to say, he's definitely more well manicured than,
He's clean, but he's not.
yeah,
He's
taken care of, essentially.
yeah.
He's very self-neglected, it seems. Because he has, like, huge fingers and toes, his clothes are dirty, that kind of thing. But what if he is trying to get back at them for taking what he felt like was his life?
Yeah.
So maybe he is essentially the mad god in the sense that he was wronged by a universe or a world that didn't understand him, and he felt that he got everything ripped away from him. And he decided to take matters into his own hand. And because if you look at biblical scriptures or any religious scriptures, gods are usually, in any religion, whether there be one or multiple, gods are usually seen as the creatures or the entities that create and build worlds and destroy them as well.
Yeah.
What if not? There is, maybe it could be, like, maybe I was saying, maybe there's not really a deliberate God in this universe, but what if it's more so alluding to the idea that the last man is trying to play God in a sense and
I can see
destroy
that.
this world that wronged him in a way that he
Especially
seems fit?
especially down to the point of creating these constructs of people like the assassins, because I don't believe assassins are people, given the fact that a lot of metal and all those things was taken out of them. I don't believe that
Hmm.
they're human. I think they're created.
Yeah, and Uh, another point that me and James talked about when we discussed this, was talked after we watched the movie, is that the assassins remind us a lot of the characters of Nine, the Tim
Yeah,
Burton movie
the
Nine.
general aspect of this film reminds me a lot of Nine, just because of claymation.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
claymation, and also
Bleak
Nine.
industrial settings as well.
Yeah, yeah. Literally, Nine takes place in this dystopian, destroyed society where, just excuse me, just it's a pop like humans no longer exist. There is literally one guy left. One guy, this old guy, and he made these little sentient rag dolls, named them, they painted little numbers on them, and how he brought these little rag people to life is that he would extract part of his soul and put it in these little creatures. When he made doll number nine, when he made nine, he used the last of his life force and he died making this little guy. What if I don't want to say he took inspiration from this movie because he could have, but there definitely is
There's parallels.
similar, yeah, there's definitely parallels to this movie where, because the old scientist in Nine was the last human. He was the only one left.
Yeah.
and he poured his heart into soul, making these little guys to uh stop the machines. I don't remember what happened. It's been a while since I've made
Yeah.
it.
It's been a
Watched it.
it's been a very long time since either of us have seen 9, so it's not very
Yeah.
fresh in our minds.
Let me see if I can look up real quick why the scientists made them, Han. Let's see. There has to be a reason.
There definitely is
Yeah.
that parallel of constructs being created by a last man.
Mm-hmm. Here it is. As a last resort to stop the machines, the scientist uses alchemy, another thing present in Mad God, to create 9 homunculus-like ragdolls called Stitch Punks, giving them portions of his own soul feeling a talisman. He dies upon completion of the final doll. And um, if I remember correctly from this movie, the 9 puppets that this guy makes represent partially segmented cognitive functions of a human's overall personality, where it's like they each represent a quality of the human soul. Like the first one is the most flawed, and I believe the ninth, the last one to be made, is the closest to perfection.
Yeah.
So, and I believe that could also be a parallel in the movie Mad God, because you see all these different kinds of characters that represent either different emotions or different groups of people. Because we have the hairy guys that could represent the working class society, or people that are seen as not as important. Maybe young, inexperienced people, because they're made and they're not exactly the brightest. Like they're very clumsy. They fall into holes and furnaces. They get ran over. They have no situational awareness whatsoever,
Yeah.
but they're there to do they know that they have a job to do, and that's what they do. And then you have like the elders, which who can maybe be seen as the plague doctor and the alchemist, that have a substantial, unique role in this whole universe, and they are separated from everybody because they're not as disgusting. They don't have to really fend for themselves and dig up scraps like everybody else. They have their specified roles, their place in society, their the comfort of their castle that they fall back to. So I
Yeah.
feel like it's something very similar to films like that.
Yeah. Let's
But
see.
yeah,
Is there much left to
there's
talk about this film?
there's probably so much to talk about.
Yeah. It is worth noting that this is it only has a runtime of an hour 23,
Yeah,
and there's so much that happens. It
so
feels
much.
longer than it really is, but in a good way, in my opinion.
In a good way, for sure. No, there's just definitely a lot of, again, this movie, I'm gonna go out and say this movie is not for everyone.
Yes.
You have to be a very specific audience, like we were talking about earlier. But if you like weird things, or if you like to just kind of shut your brain off for a little bit and just analyze art, this movie's fantastic. Like literally, I would highly recommend that you watch this movie. It's
I
so
recommend it
good. Like
exceptionally
even
too.
if you, yeah, literally, even if you or oh, I don't know, maybe if you're more of a narrative movie person, you wouldn't like it as much, but I'd say at least give it a shot.
Yeah.
Give it a
Try it out.
chance to
See if you like it.
stand its ground. Yeah, give it a chance to stand its ground, because this movie, again, is 30 plus years of someone's life. This movie was someone's passion project. Because I believe Phil Tippett is like in his 70s now.
He's been around a while. Like I said, he worked on the original RoboCop and all of them.
Jurassic Park he worked on.
Yeah,
But this guy wanted to create a vision. He had a vision and a thing that he wanted to portray in his movie, and he almost dropped it. I'm so glad he didn't.
yeah, and I'm very proud of the work that he's done. I'm very happy that he continued to make what this is.
Yeah, everyone who worked on this movie deserves a fucking round of applause because this movie is fucking gorgeous. It's so
Yeah.
good. It's beautiful. Like the art, the character designs, the cinematography, everything about this movie is a fucking masterpiece, and it shows.
Yeah,
It's
it's
this is not definitely a
phenomenal.
trash movie. This isn't a trash movie where someone wanted to make a quick cash grab and dip out. This was actual this was a product of love,
This means a
and it
lot.
shows.
It just means a lot to me because I think this is how. I wish more stuff like this was around. More things that were made for the sake of making them rather than for the sake of money.
Yeah, like because usually when people think of the genre horror, it's a very already a very taboo topic to begin with. But
Which has
usually
gotten a
when
lot less taboo as recent.
oh yeah, but usually, especially in like the 80s and the 90s, that decade of horror genre is very seen as very goofy because that's like Scream era, all that kind of stuff. Like uh I Know What You Did Last Summer esque kind of stuff.
Slashers kind of made it a bit of a departure from nightmarish horror, like their psychological horror, but it's good
Yeah.
to see that psychological horror stuff is coming back around. It's always been my personal favorite type.
Oh yeah, for sure. Cause I again, don't get me wrong, I love slashers,
Me too.
but there's definitely a great shift in film quality, both with cinematography and storytelling, that shifts from when horror first started in the 1920s to now. Because we started out with the classic monster eras where all that was being shown. And of course we have like goofier movies like, The Invisible Man, but that doesn't stem far from its roots of being a horror film. And it has a specific vision that it had in mind. When we shift to later terms, like eras, movies that are very lackluster in their feelings, like, Toxic Avenger. I don't want to say The Lost Boys because The Lost Boys is a fucking masterpiece. I'm gonna exclude that. It's not really but
Yeah.
like Scream, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Halloween, all those types of movies, I don't want to say have a more goofy feel, but they're not they're definitely could be taken as I feel like those movies are more movies that you would put on in the background of a Halloween party than actually sit down and examine. It's like, okay, this movie's actually trying to tell a coherent story. It's more so the same thing in each movie where it's like you have a group of kids or a group of people or a person that is is running from a killer and trying to survive. That's basically the whole premise of those kinds of movies. And I greatly love how as we come to a more broad age of film where people aren't as scared to voice their opinions about certain things and certain issues in the horror genre and aren't scared to be more creative about things, that we get masterpieces like this. And
Yeah.
remember, this movie was in conception starting in like the late 80s. This movie has been around for a while. And the fact that this was still had that mindset back then, but blends so well into movies that are being released now is amazing because we have horror movies that are very, how do I say, they have a narrative. Like, okay, so movies that have narratives, like we're talking like Nope, Get Out, no, I don't, no, I can't say Skinamarink, that's another point. Like X, Pearl, all those kind of movies have a clear storyline, but they have this groundbreaking thing of psychological horror and it scares you based off of things that you can experience in everyday life, like things in your real world. are scary because they're real. They're not some kind of boogeyman that waits under your bed trying to eat your and suck your toes. Like it's like this thing that's like for instance, Pearl, because we just watched that rather recently as
Pearl was
well.
very good as well.
Pearl was very good, but it's movies like that where like this girl is very fucked in the head. She is borderline unhinged, and we put that very nicely. She is fucked. She is psychotic. But yeah, in that movie, in Pearl, she is fucking psychotic. Like she does a lot of really sketchy and scary shit. And that stuff is terrifying because that is a problem, especially for women in the time period that that movie takes place in, because you have the World War going on and this thing of loneliness and dread. And she is sexually repressed. She is misunderstood. And
It also seems to be highly mentally ill, which of course
oh
is
yeah,
completely untreated because of the time period,
for
and it
sure.
has a complete and utter lack of empathy.
Yeah, and it's shit like that that's very scary. That's the stuff that I find scary, like, is psychological. Because, like, we've watched a bunch of horror movies. Uh, literally, I wouldn't say that this is a disturbing movie, Mad God, but I could definitely see how it is.
Yeah, I can see
Um,
why it would disturb people.
Yeah, I don't find it disturbing. I feel like the messages that it conveys are scary. You want to know disturbing though? Skin of fucking Marink. Holy shit, I
Which
almost
will,
couldn't finish
yeah,
that movie. Oh
we
my
will be
god.
making a completely separate episode on that because we need to talk about it. And
It's
I actually,
crazy.
it was the only film as of recent memory to legitimately scare me. Like not even like, oh, that's pretty spooky. Is in like, uh, making me legitimately scream, which has never happened to it with a horror movie before. And
Hmm.
Ashley here almost turned it off.
Yeah, I couldn't. I almost couldn't make it through. James convinced me, but like literally had to take like two breaks in between because I'm just like, oh my god. And mind you, both James and I were not feeling good really.
This was
During
while I
this
was
time.
recovering from the hospital.
No, no, this is we want no, this is no, you're right, it was. Yeah,
Yeah.
because James was currently recovering from being in the hospital, and then I just wasn't feeling good for a variety of reasons. So we're just kind of chilling in bed and just watching this movie, and oh my God, oh my God, like, because fell asleep during the Skin of Marink. I fell asleep during like a beginning portion of the movie. And I feel like I woke up even more scared than I should have been. It was not okay.
Yeah, major props, especially to Shudder. And like I said, we'll be talking about this on its own episode. Major props to Shudder, because this movie we're talking about today, made by Phil Tippett, Mad God, is also a Shudder original,
Hmm.
as well as Skinamarink is, and they fucking knocked it out of the park 2 for 2. Absolutely phenomenal movies.
For sure. And I believe that Mad God was actually a huge premiere for Shudder,
Yeah,
which deserved.
but other than that, do you have anything else you'd like to say about this movie?
Mm, sorry, I drank soda. But again, so if I would absolutely highly recommend that you watch Mad God, even if it's not something that you typically would watch. It's so interesting. And I hope that our review of this movie, if you can even call it that, allows you to think more outside of the box about films. Because that's the entire reason why we decided to do this podcast in the first place, is to bring light to an already taboo genre of movies and also show the amount of effort that goes into stuff and just kind of put the fun in it, because we've talked about so much stuff on this podcast, of course, specifically movies, but we've talked about like a video game, we've talked about goofy movies, we've talked about Halloween Horror Nights, but even compared to like the goofy stuff that we talked about, like the violence movie, or the Toxic Avenger, um, there's such taboo, not really talked about stuff. And I feel like people are so highly critical and over analytical of movies in this specific genre. And it's more so, and that's what really bothers me about stuff is that people will read reviews for movies and of any genre, like just any movie, whether it be superhero or not action, that kind of murder mystery. They'll read reviews. You can go to a movie, see like the trailer in the theater or something, and be like, "Oh, that looks amazing. I want to watch that." And they go ahead and do more research about it, or they come across reviews of this movie, and they're like, "You know what? That looks stupid. I don't want to watch it." No, watch it because people are going to have a much different opinion than you about a movie. You won't know if you like it until you watch the movie.
Yeah.
Movies mean completely different things to different people. Some people will watch the same movie. One person will hate it and think it's the most boring piece of trash garbage that they've ever seen. And other people will be like, hell yeah, this movie fucking rules. Like literally, same thing. Like this happens to James and I so much because rarely are we in a disagreement between a movie. We go and watch because we usually like watching movies together because it's fun and we get the same shit. Like I think literally a movie that we legitimately hate is Corona Zombies, which again we won't cover for a multitude of reasons, but we hated that movie because of one specific reason. Fast. That is it. We didn't even bother finishing the movie because it was a slap in the face to people who content was stolen. That's it. That's as much as we're gonna get into probably. We'll probably highlight it here and there if we're talking about movies and slandering some movies. I don't even like slandering movies, but or anything. But it's stuff like that where the the art of filmmaking is so vast because there's so many different ideas and so many outlets that you can do, and you won't know if you like something until you watch it. Because you could go through your entire life thinking, "Oh, that's dumb. That's stupid. I don't want to do that. That's bullcrap." What kind of life will you live, you know? If you don't go out and experiment with things and envision things and just have fun with things. Because who knows, you might end up liking it. Even if you're the only person in the world who likes this movie, who gives a shit? You like it. It means something to you. And I think that's the point that the director of that movie is trying to do. That's their goal. They want to make a movie that you will like. In most cases, I can't vouch for everybody because there are movies that are legitimately made because they are a quick cash grab on like a franchise or a group of something. Like, like I'm pretty sure that if me and James turned this podcast off right now, we stopped recording and we went to watch like, I don't know, fucking Blood and Honey or some bullshit, we'd probably be like, yeah, that blows. But most of the time in I'm gonna go ahead and say it. Most of the time, when you're talking about or considering movies that are not based off a popular franchise, or they're made by independent people, or they're made with the intent of being an experimental film, they fucking rule. Because there is a idea, there is a passion behind that project. Are they doing it for money? Probably not. If anything, usually in this situation, they lose they don't make a profit. Skinamarink was fucking lucky because they made it based honey, what was the budget for Skinamarink? Like 15K?
Um, it was a rather lower budget. I think it was around 15K. Yeah,
15K? Okay, that sounds about right. But
it
oh, by the
was.
way,
Yeah, 15K.
15K is sweet. Yeah, okay. The director for Skinamarink, a YouTuber that specializes in making short films based off of people's nightmares. He wrote a he wrote a short film based off of something called Heck that he released, I believe, on his YouTube chase that ended up being the foundation which Skinamarink was built upon. And he had a vision, he had a goal of what he was trying to do, and he did it. And he made so much fucking bank from this movie. But
Yeah,
that's not the point, I believe. The
he
point
wound up
is, go ahead, hon.
he wound up making like a 2.1 million off of
I
that.
know that's insane. He made such a profit. Holy crap, good for him. He deserves it. And in the case of Mad God, Phil did make profit back, but not in such an exponential way that Skinamarink did. Because I believe that Skinamarink and Mad God released around the same time, if not within a year of each other. But if you, yeah, basically, I'm gonna stop being sappy here, but because I don't think anyone really gives a shit about what I have to say about. Oh, we need to watch an experimental movie.
Honey, this is a podcast. That's the whole point of it.
I know, but I'm saying specifically this. I'm trying to. Hey, I am trying to be influential. I'm trying to be a beacon of hope. You know what? Fine, you go ahead, honey. You need, you be your beacon, be a beacon of hope with that sexy voice of yours.
Thank you. Yeah, all in all, I've said a lot of the stuff that I have to say about Mad God. It's probably in animated films, it's number two for me. My first one's Yellow Submarine, and it's almost somewhat similar to this film in a different way, not being exactly super narrative.
Yeah,
But I think
it's
Mad
not
God is absolutely.
psychedelic.
I think Mad God is by far my favorite claymation movie that's come out as of recently. I
It's so
adore
good.
experimental, just artsy things like this, and I absolutely love this film. If you get the chance to, go watch it. It's like maybe $6 or $5 on like YouTube. Maybe you can buy it and rent it off YouTube and watch it directly. It's only an hour 30 about. I highly suggest watching this film.
Yeah, for sure. It's so good. And literally, this is a man's, this is 30 years of a man's life dedicated into this movie. Give him love, please. Dear God. It's worth it. It's so good. Hey, if you end up hating it, you can blame us, specifically me. I don't care. Don't blame James. He's my homie. Throw all your hate at me. I don't care. Hey, hey, we are in a world where we can enjoy things and we can have our opinions about things. Because remember, this podcast isn't really only to be a review of movies, but this is a passion of ours. We love film. We love horror movies, especially. We love horror. I will eat this shit up all the time. But there is so much stuff that is in this genre that people don't even realize, or people that don't, because you don't even have to be into horror in the sense of liking Saw or Human Centipede or all the gross stuff. There is horror such as this, as Skin and Marink, which that I would, if you're new to horror, don't fucking watch Skin and Marink. By the way, don't. I wouldn't recommend it. That's a strong stomach movie. That legitimately scared the shit out of me. It's not gory, but dear God, if you have a head that's easily fucked with, I would not recommend Skin and Marink. Just putting that in there right now. But
Skinamarink is absolutely terrifying.
it's fucking scary. It's so scary. Um, oh dear God. Which we'll dive into that deeper in our Skin and Marink review that's coming up within the next few weeks, hopefully. But more on that. We'll put a pin in that. That's another movie that we can just go on and on about because it's so amazing. But
Yeah.
I don't even remember the fuck I was talking about. God damn. Oh, God damn it. Yeah, there you go. But you know, give this guy some love because this is gorgeous. Because even if you don't like poopy butthole kind of looking thing. You'll like this, maybe. Maybe you
Yeah.
won't. I don't know.
Like I said, personally really enjoyed this film, and I highly recommend it personally.
Oh yeah, it's so good. And I know that usually in every episode of the podcast we talk about, we're like, oh, this movie rules. You need to go see this. Legitimately, we mean that more so than we ever could anticipate with this specific movie. Please watch Mad God. It is so good. It's amazing. It's gorgeous. It is literally all handmade. It is completely stop motion because that, remember, stop motion doesn't happen very much anymore. That stuff is basically a thing in the past because we live in an age where there's CGI, crappy and not. I will admit there is some pretty shitty CGI out there. I'm looking at you, Spy Kids. Wait, gem of a movie. I love Spy Kids. Not Spy Kids. Oh, Shark Boy and Lava Girl. God, such a good movie though. But Acid Trip, I love it. But stop motion is a medium of film that's usually not seen very much anymore because it's, I don't want to say outdated because your guys still use stop motion, but it's something that's not used as much because it's deemed as something in the a thing of the past. That is not necessarily the case, and this movie shows that because it uses that in such a way, excuse me, that okay, if this movie was made with CGI, I don't think it would have been as amazing. I probably would be like, oh, this is a hunk of garbage. Maybe not, but stop motion works so well with this because it plays into the nitty gritty of the story.
I think the stop motion has always been very effective at lending a unsettling tone to a movie.
Oh, for sure.
Right back to the days of like Jason and the Argonauts. It's a very good at kind of triggering that uncanny valley segment in your brain
Hmm.
of something appearing human, moving, but not quite moving like a biological being should.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember to hear something before I watched this movie that this movie is basically like a long Tool music video. They are so right, and I love it. I feel like that's another reason why I like it. It's just basically like a bunch of music videos for Tool strung together, and I think that's so fantastic. I love it.
If you like this style of animation, go watch some of Tool's music videos. Also, if you like heavy metal.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if this will help at all, but if anyone watching this has listened to or seen music videos from the band Primus, this movie is very Primus claymation music video-esque. I feel. I could be wrong. Fact check me, James, if I'm wrong, but that's what I get from it. It looks very Primus-like.
It's very simple. Yeah, they do also use a lot of claymation in theirs.
Yeah. Well, I think that's about everything that I have, but just just definitely watch it. It's so good. It's amazing. It's legitimately a piece of art. Like everything is handcrafted and gorgeous. It's so beautiful. Like if you like stop motion and you think that stop motion is a thing for baby movies and you want something more grown up, this is a movie for you because it's so beautiful. And yeah, please, just please watch it. It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah. Other than that, I have nothing left to say about this, and I absolutely adore this film. Please go watch it, like I said.
Yes.
Yeah.
Please watch it. Please watch it. Please. Please, we're begging you.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in for another episode. We greatly appreciate it. Welcome back, James. We're glad to have you back.
Yeah, it was absolutely phenomenal recording this again. And like I said, thanks for coming out to watch us. And of course, friends, stay spooky.
Today, bouquet. We'll keep it short and simple today. Bye, guys. Enjoy your day. See you
Bye.
next time.
Enjoy.